Some houses breathe in silence. Others whisper in the dark. Ezra Delacroix arrived in the village of Arsene, with the sky still tinged with lead. He didn't run away from something. He ran away from everything. The silence of the forest surrounding the Velasquez mansion was more honest than any CEO at his last board meeting. The house was old, 18th century, 3 floors, Baroque style, high windows, old curtains, steps that creaked even when there were no steps. It was love at first impression. On the second day, while exploring the narrow corridors, Ezra came across a gallery of numbered portraits. Lords, ladies, infantas, clerics. But frame 18 was different. It showed a young woman, dark hair tied back with a blue velvet bow. Her gaze was fixed, sad. Her skin was pale. No signature, no name. And below, the only thing written in gold ink. Number 18. Ezra stood still for long minutes. "Who are you?" he whispered. The wind from the window creaked. The curtain moved, and the sound that came next, it sounded like a whisper that wasn't his. That night, Ezra dreamed about the painting, or rather, with a woman in it. She was sitting in an old armchair. She was sewing something invisible. She didn't speak, but she turned her face slowly and looked at him. In the dream, Ezra whispered, "Are you alive?" She smiled slightly and answered, without moving her lips, "No more, but not enough to forget." He would wake up in a cold sweat, with the sound of the wind hitting the windows. But the detail that disturbed him the most was another. The blue bow on the board was slightly out of place. The next day, Ezra went up to the gallery again. Frame 18 was still there, but the bow and the woman's hair, it wasn't where he remembered it. It wasn't a daydream. He had a photographic memory. He came closer, and for a moment, the scent of lavender hung in the air, the kind her grandmother used. Ezra closed his eyes, and when he opened them, he swore the girl's gaze had changed. Now she looked a little to the left, straight to him. On the third night, she spoke. "Ezra." He froze. In the dream, they were in the same hallway, just the two of them. The whole house was silent. "You see me?" Finally, Ezra tried to touch his hand, but she pulled away, receding like smoke. "If you knew what happened here, you would never have opened that door." Ezra woke up, and the door to his room was ajar. He had locked it before going to sleep. In the house of the forgotten, each step holds a name, each closed door an unheard scream. Ezra started hearing popping noises around the house, but not normal pops. They were like rhythmic beats. 3. Pause. 2. Pause. 4. Sometimes they came from the ceiling. Sometimes they came from the wall behind picture 18. He drew a map of the house. He marked the sounds. The pattern led to a locked room in the attic. The next morning, Ezra went up to the attic. The wood creaked as if it remembered everyone who had ever stepped foot there. At the end of the corridor, a dark door with twisted iron hinges. A sign, "No entry. Decree of 1912. Ezra forced the doorknob. Nothing. But when he went downstairs, the woman's picture was different again. Her head was now tilted slightly to the left side, and his hand held something it hadn't held before, a black key. That night, it rained only inside the house. The ceiling was dripping, but the sky was clear. Ezra walked through the halls with a flashlight. In the room in frame 18, the floor was soaked, but no pipes ran through there. The portrait was blurry, as if the glass had breathed. Ezra whispered, "What do you want from me?" And then he heard, behind him, "I don't want anything. I just need you to stay here." In the village, Ezra met an antique dealer named Emile. When shown a photo of the painting, Emile turned pale. That portrait should have been burned. Ezra frowned. "Why?" "Because all the owners of this house before you died in the second winter. All of them." Ezra laughed nervously. "Superstition? Emile? Maybe. But none of them had the courage to sleep in the attic room." Ezra kept the information, and he decided he would open that door. Late that night, Ezra woke up to the sound of falling metal. On the floor of the hallway was the black key, in the exact place where the woman in the painting was looking now. He caught her and noticed something new. In the portrait, she was smiling. Some rooms don't collect dust. They collect presences. Ezra went upstairs with the black key in his hand. The attic door seemed to breathe with him, as if waiting. Turned the key. It went in smoothly. The lock opened with a click that sounded like a whisper of relief. The room smelled of wet wood and lavender. It was untouched, as if it had been closed yesterday. In the center, a rocking chair, a mirror covered with a dark sheet, and on the dresser, a letter stamped 18. Ezra opened the envelope. The handwriting was delicate but firm. If you've come this far, then you've heard me, seen me, dreamed me. I am Adelaide, and this house didn't bury me. It held me, between the layers of time, between the walls of silence. And now we are connected. Ezra folded the paper with shaking hands. The name, Adelaide, sounded like an old memory in his mind, as if I had already heard it when I was a child. He pulled back the sheet covering the mirror. The glass was cloudy. A figure appeared behind it. Ezra turned around. Nothing. He looked again. Now the reflection showed Adelaide, the woman in the painting, sitting in the rocking chair. She looked at him and murmured without sound, "Come back tomorrow." Ezra covered the mirror again, and he left without looking back. In the hallway, there were wet footprints, barefoot, but not his. They took to his room. Ezra followed them to the door. Inside, everything was intact, except for one detail. Adelaide's portrait was no longer in the gallery. There was a void where frame 18 used to be. In the early hours of the morning, Ezra heard whispers coming from his own pillow. Unspoken words, broken sentences. You also came from pain. It is not just your loneliness that brought you here. There is a reason you chose this house. Ezra woke up, gasping. The last sentence sounded clearer. I was the first, and you may be the last. Some souls don't rest. They repeat until someone sees them dance. The next day, Ezra looked through the old maps of the mansion. He discovered that there was a wing that had been sealed after a fire in 1891. Behind the library, he found a loose wooden panel. Pushed. A corridor lit by blind skylights led him to an abandoned ballroom. Chandeliers still hung. Curtains were in tatters. A grand piano was closed, covered in dust. And in the center of the hall, circular marks on the floor, as if someone was still dancing there. Ezra felt chills. And then the music started, but the piano was closed. Ezra closed his eyes. Sounds of footsteps, fabrics rustling, muffled laughter. He opened his eyes. The hall was full. People in period costumes danced as if no time had passed. At the top of the stairs, Adelaide watched him. She wore the blue dress from the painting, and she went down, step by step. People didn't touch her, but the ground moved around her, as if they respected her. She approached Ezra, and for the first time, he reached out his hand. He accepted. They danced in silence. Not a word said, but Adelaide cried. Ezra asked mentally, "Are you under arrest?" She answered with her eyes, "No, I'm attached to this house, to this land, to the memory that no one wants to remember." Ezra stopped the music. Everything froze. He shouted, "What do you want from me?" And then everything went black. Ezra woke up in the hall, alone, but something was in his hand, a piece of fabric blue, the same as Adelaide's dress. In the corner of the room, someone had written in charcoal, "When the last is seen, the first may go." Ezra whispered, "Am I the last one?" From the top of the stairs, a creaking sound, and Adelaide's shadow watching. Their names that opened doors. Others lock souls inside. Ezra began searching every forgotten room in the mansion. Inside a secret drawer in his old office, he found a diary with a worn leather cover. There was no name on the cover, but when you opened it, the first page read, Adelaide Velasquez, 1879. Ezra sat down on the floor at that very moment. He leafed through it slowly. Scattered excerpts revealed the truth. The house won't let me sleep. The painting was made against my will. He said I would live like this forever. But living isn't it? Ezra understood. Adelaide was trapped in the painting, not killed but restrained. And the man who portrayed her was the former owner of the mansion, Sebastian Velasquez. In a safe hidden beneath the library floor, Ezra found ancient letters bearing the Vatican seal. It was reported that Sebastian had been expelled from the Order of the Eternal Chroniclers, a secret brotherhood that studied soul-to-object transitions. The letters described a ritual. The painting is the frame, the blood the seal, the name the prison. Ezra read another page from the diary. On the 18th, at 6 p.m., he completed the painting, and by writing just the number, he erased me from the world. Ezra muttered. No one knew her name, so no one could free her. Ezra went to the gallery. The painting had returned, but now cracked. The crack passed through the inscription, number 18. Ezra took a box cutter and carefully scraped off the paint. Beneath it, a name erased with dark varnish, Adelaide Velasquez. Ezra murmured the full name 3 times. On the third, the candle next to the painting went out, and behind him, a voice whispered, "Thanks." Ezra looked at the board again. Now Adelaide smiled sincerely, and behind her, the painted window showed a ray of sunlight that hadn't been there before. Ezra understood. He had said the name, and with that, given her what no one had the courage to give, identity. When one soul is freed, another must choose between leaving or staying. That night, the sky darkened prematurely. Ezra was in his room, reading the last page of Adelaide's diary. He sealed me because I said no. Said I would never be his. So he made me part of the house, a decorative memory. Ezra felt angry for her, but also for yourself. I felt that somehow I had always been connected to her pain, and now he carried a piece of the same loneliness. At 6 p.m., Ezra went to the gallery. Frame 18 was there, but Adelaide's face was beginning to fade, brushstroke by brushstroke, as if the paint returned to the wood. Ezra walked closer, and he heard her voice, soft. "You saw me, and now I can go." "But what about you, Ezra? Do you know why you came to this house?" He closed his eyes, and he understood. During that early morning, the house seemed suspended in time. No pop, no sound. Ezra walked through the rooms as if it were the last time. In the ballroom, the chandeliers shone by themselves, and in the attic mirror, Adelaide's reflection waved one last time. "You are not alone anymore. Not because you freed me, but because now you have freed yourself too." Ezra took a deep breath, and for the first time since he arrived, he cried. He wrote a new sign. He placed it under the empty frame. Adelaide Velasquez lived here. She cried here. She left here. And as he left the mansion that morning, Ezra didn't take the painting, nor the diary, nor the key, just the echo of a voice that finally was heard. Freeing someone is easy. Hard is freeing what you never understood was holding you back. Ezra returned to his grandfather's apartment in Montmartre. There was no luxury, no technology, just shelves of old books and forgotten letters. There he found correspondence from the 1980s. Sender, Adelaide V. Address, Velasquez Mansion. Recipient, Ezra Delacroix, Ezra's grandfather. Ezra opened it with shaking hands. "Auguste, I do not expect forgiveness. only that the truth finds someone who does not fear it. The house is more than stones. It is a memory made of flesh. Ezra understood. Her family knew. Her grandfather knew her. Maybe he even loved Adelaide. PX, your personal system, has located a hidden record in the genetic banks of the Delacroix Foundation. Codename AV-18. Ezra confronted the data. Genetic compatibility, 38%. She was not his relative, but she had been included in the behavioral studies of his lineage. Adelaide had been studied, archived, silenced. Ezra took a deep breath. Her story was the story of all the women who were erased in the name of heritage. Ezra wrote an article, titled, "The Girl in Frame 18, When Loneliness Becomes a Symbol," published under a pseudonym. He didn't reveal the location, nor the portrait, but it told the story of a forgotten woman whose gaze spanned generations. And in the end, he wrote, "If you pass an old house and a portrait calls your name, listen. Someone may still be there, waiting to be remembered, and perhaps set free." The following week, Ezra received a message. No sender, no trace. "Thank you for not turning me into a legend. Thank you for seeing me." He only signed, AV. Ezra smiled, and for the first time, he felt that the most valuable inheritance was this: to feel the invisible. The mansion was breathing when he arrived. Now it sleeps and dreams of silence. 3 months later, a woman was walking through the village of Arsene. He stopped before the rusty gates of the Velasquez mansion. The windows were covered, the doors were locked, but she felt like something that was watching or resting. She placed her hand on the cold iron of the gate. He smiled, and he left. Ezra never returned to the mansion, but in his notes he wrote, "Silence is an echo. When listened to carefully, it returned stories that no one had the courage to tell." Adelaide was not a ghost. She was a scream that no one wanted to hear. Now she is memory and freedom. In Ezra's office in Geneva, there's a new painting. Not numbered, not framed, just an image made in charcoal. Adelaide, smiling, with eyes open to the horizon. At the bottom of the screen, a sentence: "For those who once saw me, and therefore freed me." And so the mansion fell asleep. No voices, no shadows, only the soft echo of a woman who once was more than a painting.